Why did he never get angry even once?
What happened during the Dodgers-Marlins game is now making headlines around the world. Why did Shohei Ohtani choose to respond the way he did? A wildly inconsistent strike zone, an umpire losing control of the game, and a team drowning in frustration. In a moment where everyone else let their emotions explode, Shohei Ohtani stood on the mound without changing his expression even once.
Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe.
Why was that called a ball? This makes no sense.
The Dodgers may have lost to the Marlins that night, but the real story wasn't the final score. It was the chaos surrounding the strike zone. A game where the count kept shifting unfairly, pitch after pitch. And right in the middle of it all, Shohei Ohtani never argued, never showed frustration. He simply kept pitching. Why did he remain silent in a moment that would have pushed almost anyone over the edge? And how did that silence end up changing the entire impression of the team? Here's what was really happening beneath the surface. Everything started with that very first pitch. After the game, one particular comment quietly began spreading everywhere. Does he have something against Shohei or something? Those words came from the catcher who had caught over 100 of Ohtani's pitches. And this wasn't about making excuses. It was the honest reaction of someone who had watched the momentum of the game shift again and again because of questionable calls from the closest possible view. The strike zone never stayed consistent for even a moment. It was the kind of game that could make any pitcher lose composure. And yet, Shohei Ohtani battled through 6 innings and struck out 9 hitters. But after the game, people weren't talking about the numbers. They were talking about one thing only: the fact that he never showed a single emotion. So why did Ohtani choose silence while everyone around him grew visibly frustrated? Normally, this is the kind of situation where pitchers stare down the umpire, exchange confused looks with the catcher, or at least show some small sign of frustration. But Shohei Ohtani was different. He wasn't affected by the frustration in the dugout. He kept pitching calmly, almost as if nothing unusual was happening at all. What threw the game into chaos wasn't his velocity. It wasn't his command. It was the calls. The first sign that something felt off came from a single perfect pitch. In the opening inning, Ohtani fired a splitter right along the edge of the zone, exactly where you want it. But it was called a ball. A challenge was immediately used, and the call was overturned to a strike. And that's the key point. That one pitch already forced Ohtani to spend focus and energy he never should have had to waste. Before the game had truly even settled in, a different kind of battle had already begun. Normally, in a situation like this, pitchers react somehow. They look back at the umpire, shake their head, exchange words with the catcher. Even the smallest gesture usually reveals the frustration building inside. But the man standing on the mound that day was different. Shohei Ohtani changed absolutely nothing. He took the ball back, quietly returned to the rubber, and threw the next pitch. Again and again, that was all he did. He never complained about the strike zone, never called the catcher to the mound. Not once did he show any visible frustration. And it didn't feel like he lacked emotion. If anything, it felt like the complete opposite, as if he had made a conscious decision not to let those emotions escape.
The simplest choice he made under extreme pressure.
Bases loaded in the 5th inning. A moment of absolute pressure. Considering everything that had happened up to that point, no one would have been surprised if frustration or panic had finally started to show. But even there, Shohei Ohtani never changed his approach. He didn't spend extra time talking with the catcher. He never turned around to look at the umpire. Instead, he chose the simplest response possible. He got the sign and fired a 98 miles per hour fastball. Not finesse, not adjustment, pure power. It wasn't some special trick to escape the situation. It was Ohtani protecting his own rhythm. And with that, he escaped the biggest crisis of the game by inducing weak contact. But what truly stood out came afterward. Most pitchers would explode with emotion at that moment. A fist pump, a roar, an intense stare toward the catcher. But Shohei Ohtani was different. He simply let out a small breath and moved on to the next play. That was it. It didn't even feel like he was suppressing emotion. It felt as if he believed there was no reason to show it in the first place. And somehow, that silence left the strongest impression of all. Even though everyone was watching the same game, the reactions could not have been more different. The Dodgers dugout made no effort to hide its frustration that night, especially during the fifth-inning pitch clock controversy. When the manager stormed out to argue, the tension in the stadium noticeably intensified. Questionable calls. Moments that directly changed the flow of the game. It was only natural for emotions to rise as a team. Even the manager admitted as much afterward. He explained that when well-executed pitches aren't rewarded properly, it starts affecting the entire rhythm of the game itself. But the pitcher at the center of everything was operating completely differently. While emotions boiled over around him, Shohei Ohtani seemed locked into an entirely separate rhythm. He kept his distance from every outside distraction, refusing to let any of it enter his mind. His presence felt completely disconnected from the emotional energy inside the dugout. And this wasn't indifference. If anything, it was the opposite. It felt intentional, as if he was deliberately creating distance so he wouldn't be affected by any of it. So where does that difference come from? Leave only what you can control. What Ohtani was protecting wasn't just his mechanics. It was his boundaries. It wasn't that he was ignoring what was happening around him. He understood everything perfectly. He simply refused to let it affect his decisions. That separation, that ability to draw a line, was the true core of Shohei Ohtani's approach that night. But another player's comments revealed just how difficult that choice actually is. One teammate who reacted emotionally during the game later admitted he couldn't stay composed. Even if the frustration was justified, he realized that reacting emotionally never made the situation better. With the entire team feeling the pressure, he openly admitted that emotions had started taking control. And that's exactly why the contrast became impossible to ignore. If anyone had a reason to react emotionally, it was probably Shohei Ohtani. But he didn't. In a game where things kept refusing to go his way, maintaining that mindset was anything but easy. And yet, he continued focusing only on the things he could control. He deliberately shut the door on everything outside of that. That silence wasn't saying nothing at all. Manager Roberts and Dalton Rushing may have viewed the game from different positions, but their conclusions were remarkably similar. One described it as maintaining inner control while everything outside is in chaos. The other called it something you have to learn if you want to compete at the highest level. It's not that he had no reason to get angry. If anything, he probably had more reason than anyone else on the field. And yet, he never let it show. Because he understood exactly what should be accepted and what should never be allowed inside. That's why his silence carried so much meaning. He wasn't suppressing emotion. He was refusing to be controlled by it. And because of that, the contrast between Ohtani and everyone around him became even more striking, leaving an unforgettable impression on those watching. More importantly, This wasn't some accidental reaction in the moment. It was something built through daily repetition, separating himself from each pitch, resetting after every situation, focusing only on what he needed to do next. That mindset, repeated over and over again, created a foundation that wouldn't shake, even in the middle of complete chaos, which is why that silence felt like far more than patience. To the people watching, it felt like a deliberate act of will.
Thanks for watching all the way through. What did you think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we continue to follow Shohei Ohtani's incredible journey. See you in the next one.